Okay, let's get this show on the road, guys. You are listening to the Joe Mars Podcast, a podcast inspired by musical creatives from and within Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world who are making an impact and pursuing their passions. My name is Joseph Maramba, and I'm a radio host best known for shows on Capital FM, Power FM, and Sport FM radio. And I'm sitting down with creatives to learn more on their story and how they are making an impact with every single production. So it's a new season of the Joe Mars Podcast, and I thought we would do things a slightly different way. All right, we have a new setup. I showed you on the first trailer. It's nothing special, but it was for me just to wrap my hand around the fact that, this podcast is here to stay. And once again, I need to just up the level that I've always been on. Okay, I've added a camera, a sofa, a few bottles, and today it's my artwork and a bit of light in the room. So first and foremost, I just want to take the time to applaud myself. Okay, this podcast has never seen anybody else's hands. I do everything from shooting, from editing, from designing, recording, and talking. Yeah, the interviews, I do them myself. So it's not an easy thing to do, but I do it anyway. I love doing this. There's nothing else that I love other than just talking. Some might actually go even to the extent of saying, I love talking and hearing my voice more than I do anybody else's. But anyway, we're not here for that. The format hasn't changed, of course, but a few things to put to the fore is the state of the world. For the longest, I think I have been talking and I have been doing podcasts and or broadcasting, and I've loved entertainment. All right, I've loved the way the mindset of an entertainer works. But let's face it, entertainment does not exist around the world on its own. Entertainers do not exist in the world on their own. So there will be all things that pertain to an entertainment or to an entertainer added into this podcast. Okay, we're not going to go around detaching ourselves like as if we live in a vacuum. If you paint, if you draw, if you write books, write songs, play, produce, whatever it is, we would love to have you on the podcast. But we're also going to be talking about all of those other things that surround entertainment, because they don't live in a vacuum. Entertainers don't live in a vacuum. The politics of the day affect what they do and what they give out on a daily basis. So this is going to be something that we are always going to be talking about. Okay, so get ready for that. I will be throwing a few of this and that, and we'll always keep ourselves in check on what's happening around the world. In a nutshell, here's what happened in the first 2 seasons of the Joe Mars Podcast. We had Long John, 2 episodes with Long John. It was quite interesting. He really is a funny cat, and ever since that, we never had him. He's been busy. He's now in America. He has attained a green card, and he's doing his, his live shows there. And just recently, I saw he's headlining on a comedy, at a comedy place, and so he's doing very well. But we only had 2 episodes of that, and they didn't go far. What a joke it was! A very long joke. All in all, we had about 30 episodes in the very first Joe Mars Podcast, and also including the ones that I did on Twitter when I found a small group of Africans who were so concerned about Africa, and we called it the 6 a.m. Club, Wake Up Africa. As I record this, we just started, we just went back to that. So I went back to everything that I love doing, which is an inclusive of, just gonna fix my mic there, which is inclusive of broadcasting and podcasting. Okay, so you can find all of this podcast on my website if you just want to look at the stuff that we've done so far. So the question could be, and from your end could be, what have I been doing ever since I produced my very first episode and I went into my second season, and then there's been this huge gap. So obviously, when I started producing the Joe Mars podcast, it was during COVID. A lot of people had time to kill. A lot of people had time to reflect. And I guess you could say, of the many artists that I spoke to, many of them were willing to talk to me because they never knew. They didn't even know when their last day was going to be. Like, it's COVID. Everybody's dying around. So you're like, okay, let me give a podcast. Let me give an interview to anybody that I could just get my hands on. And Joe Mars is one of them. Not that I'm belittling myself. But ever since that, the truth is, I fell off the bandwagon. Okay? I forgot my calling, and I got swamped with the 8 to 5s. Sometimes you, as a family man, you just start saying to yourself, I need to go out there and do other things, feed the family. It's life. But I forgot this calling, and I'm not, hating on anyone who has an 8 to 5, but I forgot that calling. And when you love something, you do it all the times. You don't give up on it, okay? If you love something, you don't give up on it. That's all I have to say. So I got distracted and forgot that there's a group of people that love listening to my voice more than I do. And that's you, right? Not only my voice, because I don't think I have a wow voice, but my thoughts on things and how I do things. So I know I'm a little bit vague on that, but all I can say is, never take for granted the skill and the talent that God has given you. It's going to be painful. It's not going to be easy. You will be faced with the day-to-day bread and butter issues, but never forget the things and the talent that God has given you. Doesn't matter what the world is inflicting on you, rise above the water that you're sinking in. Make time for it, because sometimes we do have plenty of other time on things that are of less importance and things that do not give us any value or any meaning. And then we spend our times on that, all right? When in actual fact, we could be doing something meaningful and something that feeds our soul, our mind, our body, and everything, and makes us who we are. Okay, so never forget that. All right, rise above the water that you're sinking in, and trust in God, trust in His process, and put your faith in Him all the time. All right. Some of the other things that happened, and I guess that made me just quiet down a little bit. I lost a brother, very close brother to me. It took me time to heal. I'm still healing. Many people will say healing is a process. Yeah, indeed, it is a process. And that process, I simply haven't worked it out. I don't know. I'm just going every day as it comes. I believe, and I want to believe so much, and I do believe. It's not that I'm forcing myself to believe, but I do believe he's in a better place. There's just so much chaos in this world today. Sometimes you feel like the people that are gone are pretty much doing okay than we are. So yeah, I lost an uncle, I lost aunties, I lost a whole host of family members. And that sometimes just makes you just want to, look back at, or look at where you are going as an individual, not only just go around the world as if, or just go with life as if everything else around you is not happening. Okay. The other good thing is me and the missus had a baby, so most of my time was spent there trying to bring up this small little bundle of joy. Oh, she's so beautiful. She smiles at me every time she looks at me, and I'm like her hero, And magasongonzgo noise yemwana ari uchema, yeah, tineka cheche in the house, so I can't really restrict her and say, hey, usaende uku, come here. And by the way, she hasn't started talking, and that's about it. So welcome to the Joe Mars podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, makadini, tripo makadiwo, how have you been? Kwakadi kwa muri, zviri say, pakadi yapo. Whatever you wanna and how you wanna say it, welcome. This is the Joe Mars podcast. My name is Joe Maramba, and I'll be with you in this very first and exciting new season of the Joe Mars podcast. Sadly, we have to start the podcast on a very sad note, because this has always been an entertainment podcast. And a week ago, news filtered into my timeline about Garry Mapanzure's death. Okay, Garry has always been one of those artists that I used to play him a lot when I was at Capital 100.4 FM. There's a song called Wapunza, and he will be remembered mostly for the tantalizing voice that he always had, soulful R&B, and his vocal abilities at such a tender age was just amazing, right? There is a whole list of popular artists that have perished at the age of 25. If you go and Google it right now, Garry Mapanzure is one of them, and most importantly, one of the biggest artists in the entire 21st century. 21st century would be Tupac Shakur. He is one of them. Also perished at the age of 25. He had an album released in July. I hadn't listened to the album, so when he perished, I actually wanted to go and listen to this album. And I kept asking myself, why did I not call up Garry Mapanzure on the podcast? Because remember, the podcast was being done virtually, and I didn't have any reason to say, he can't come into the studio or something like that. I could have just had that interview with him. But it didn't happen, and there are certain things in life that won't happen to you, and certain things in life that will happen to you. So you give thanks to all the things that happen to you and that do not happen to you. So it's one of those. Garry, and the news that filtered to me has not been easy. Like when you love artists and when you love the music and when you love entertainers, it's a special part of my life. And I just love people who put their time into creating something that a lot of people will fall in love with. And he is one of those artists that did something that a lot of people actually fell in love with, his music, his artistry, his vocal abilities, his performances. But I wasn't so happy with everything that happened. To be quite honest, it left a bitter taste in my mouth. A dear, good colleague of mine from my Capital 100.4 FM days, Skata, he wrote something on Facebook which was along the lines of all these artists that they are posting their social media, doing it for clout, saying how much they were close to Garry Mapanzure. Then what? He asked the question, then what? Okay. And to be honest, I responded and I was like, well, maybe Scatter, you might be just putting pressure and putting unnecessary pressure on people. And this is how we mourn, and this is how we pay our last respects these days. The world is just about social media. And we'd like to believe the world is about social media, but when in actual fact it's not. But that's what it is, right? So I actually responded. But after I responded, I realized that, you know what? Maybe he was right. Scatter was actually right, because afterwards, and this was before his burial anyway, so after that post, the burial was done, and guess what? All of those artists never showed up. None of them. Everybody, or almost everybody, who sent a message. And this is an arts industry. This is the entertainment industry in the country. You have lost one of your own, and yet there is nobody who's trying to help the family from grieving. Nobody who's there, except for Anna Hiuzi, Nananiko, one or two artists that I found, I saw on social media. UK, South Africa. Hiuzi came from South Africa, But there was no Ja Praiser, there was no Winky D. They pay their last respects during their shows, but take a little bit of time, gentlemen. That's all I'm saying. Just take a minute. Just take 5 minutes, and do it. If everything around you evolves around the world of social media, do it also for social media. Go there, just be seen, just be heard. That's all I'm saying. zvekuti tobata maoko pafoni virtually and stuff like that. We all know our culture. Our culture means we have to be there. And I know maybe there are people that who probably would have not been there because they were busy, but atinga vatashaya kaindustry nekukura kwayo kwese, totoshaya vanhu vari kuenda kurufu rwani vaGarry Mapanzure. For me, it left a very bitter taste in my mouth. So I don't know about you, but guys, we need to do better, even if it's not being there physically. But ma-artists chimbouyeka pamwe chete mungobatanidzwa funds of some sort to say tine a revolving fund, whatever happens to an artist, any one of us. Because the thing is, the assumption that you are big today, or the assumption that you're doing well today, and that you will never do worse than what you are doing today, is very, very sad, because upenyu ivhiri notenderera. You know what I mean? So how about you come together, create some sort of fund, have one or two lawyers write it up, create some sort of community, whether it's, I don't know, man, I really don't know, but create something to say this is for artists and by artists, run by artists, you get a chairman or whatever it is. I really don't care, just don't spend all that money doing nonsense. Then it comes into or handy when certain things like this happen. It comes handy when you are trying to fly or to get $2,000 or something to airlift an artist from the point of an accident into a point of actually being helped and assisted by medical personnel. It comes in handy. My show amunoita on a day-to-day basis. Akawanda, guys, to an extent that you cannot tell me kuti mnogona kuchadzangana kuspare wakana $10. If hypothetically, if each and every show that my artists are in Zimbabwe do, and then say, okay, every month, cannot every show that you do, contributor kana $10. 10, just $10. I'm not talking of Zim dollars because as Shenzeka, right? $10, chunguesa per side, guys. Then collectively, how much do you think all of those artists, it's like an insurance of some sort, how much do you think those artists will raise? Because every time something is happening, an artist is performing, but also sadly, something can actually happen. Saka manje kana isusu uri artist and your wife knows that you are part of this insurance scheme by artists, something happens immediately. The first person they're going to call is someone who's administering those funds or is administering that insurance scheme or that insurance of some sort, and then to say, guys, tibatsiriyo tapindwa nedambudziko, what do you want? We need 3,000 to airlift ningi kuti aende ku hospital. Okay, airlift that da. Kana zvaramba, then it shows kuti makabatana. It shows that there is something that you are working on. It's so tough for any other artist in Zimbabwe. I get that, but collectively, nekuwanda kwa makaitaka and the things that we then hear about artists pakupera kwezuva kuti angasina kana sendi ranga anaro, he was living a pauper life, right? Izvinoita kucreate GoFundMe and nemachichichi. It just boggles the mind, because listen, we know that when you do these performances, panobuda mari amgamba mashawa of $5 kana $10, where you can open up a USD account and say ningi ma signatories edu anditi kana zvinzvaomera artist, this is the toll or this is the number yemunhu ari part and parcel of that scheme. This is the number that you call quickly, or these are the numbers that and then you raise alarm, and then people can. It wouldn't have taken 10 hours or 12 hours for that to happen. Obviously 2-3 hours, and then the funds are released, and then muno batsiro. I'll leave it at that. And also I'd love to hear your feedback on that. If you're an artist, what do you think about it? If you are just a person who supports the art, what do you think about it? There needs to be something done, because this is this situation that we faced with Garry. It's something that we need to learn from. It is something that we really need to learn from. I'm going to talk to try and talk to a lady who helped put Garry on some sort of level. She has been working with Garry, or she was working with Garry at one time in China, and gave Garry a couple of stages to perform at when she was doing her work, right? And just gonna try and erase her right now and see if we can talk to her. So yeah, Samantha.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. How's it?
This whole connection and you being in China is not so easy. Eh? Now I have to convince otherwise that this meeting is what? No, man, it's just so tricky. How's China?
It's good. Can't complain.
Yeah, sad news about Garry Mapanzure, right? I
I
know, I
know,
know.
and it's really, really sad.
I know you sort of gave the young man a platform to perform and to showcase his talent when you were, doing a couple of events. Can you just quickly take me through that? How did it all happen?
In China, I've got an organization or an NGO called Appreciate Africa Network. And within this organization, actually started it to create awareness about Africans, and the African culture. And it was all because of the stereotypes that people here had of Africans. So with trying to showcase what Africans are doing, Africans who are in the Asia Pacific are doing. So each year I have a different events that I do to promote Africans and their culture. So I put up an advert that was in 2018. So Garry was one of the people who responded to the advert. And I didn't know him then. I didn't know his music then. So I started talking to him, and he highlighted that he was also new in China, and he only had 2 songs to his name, and just streaming on YouTube, and just gave me a link to to listen to the song. So I did listen to Inonzichi, that song, Watora Moyo Wangu Wapunza, something like that.
Yeah.
So I really sort of like fell in love with his music, and then I told him I was gonna give him a chance to, be one of the performers. Joe, I don't want to lie. I mean, when Garry came on stage, I don't know, there was something that happened. I remember our then ambassador was also there, and I could see him on table number 1. He stood up and with the wife, Baba and Mai Chikava, and they started dancing, because this was not like a show. It was just a performance, I mean, in the middle of the event. And just this sound, there's something about Garry's music, his voice was totally different from what we'd used to listening to.
And little
Yeah.
did you, know when he signed up and he called you up for this event that you were gonna get one of the most powerful voices ever to come out of Zimbabwe.
As someone who does events, I'll be honest with you, I had brought in Knox before. I brought Knox from Zim to come and perform in one of the events. I brought Ngoni. I even brought Oliver Mtukudzi and the band. But we didn't have people who are based in China, you understand, who could actually do that. We had to ship in people to come in, and there were times that would just end up having people from other countries and stuff. So it was sort of like the first time for me to get someone who was in China from Zimbabwe. And as a Zimbabwean doing that, it really gave us that kind of pride. You understand that, hey, you know, Nesuo Nasindije, you understand when he
Yeah.
stood at that stage and the whole crowd was sort of like blown up. It was like, damn, this is a Zimbabwean. And
Yeah.
we've got we're celebrating Africans, but when a Zimbabwean does it, it brings this whole different perspective
Yeah.
and that pride that we had.
Take us through
Yeah.
what what you remember feeling when you heard this news. I mean, it was very sad news, and it's just been a couple of days. But I mean, and so many things have developed even after the sad loss of Gary's life. What was your immediate reaction and feeling towards his death?
When I had the news, I was actually at an event. We're doing celebrating the International Day of the Girl Child. We're having an afternoon tea. So one of my friends, Marvin, sent me a message and she was like, Gary is late. Do you know, I, I thought she was joking.
Yeah.
And I was like, my answer was like, no. That's how I responded. I just went like, no. And I didn't talk to her or ask, or I was like, no, it can't be. And then I kept quiet. And then my young brother called me on my phone and said the same thing. And still, it just didn't sink in. It didn't. It took me time. And then I was like, I have to search it by myself. Imagine these are two closest people that are telling me, but it
But you
took
still
me
can't
going
believe it. Yeah.
to the social media
Yeah.
to try and really confirm, like, are they telling me something that is true? And when I saw it, I was really, really devastated because I remember working with him like the whole of 2018 and parts of 2019. And whenever he has a song, he'll just throw it in like, Sesame, can you share? Actually, this year for the awards, we used one of his song that it's called Winner, when we were putting the profiles of the nominees. He sent me that song. So if you check out some of the profiles of our nominees in June this year, the song that was playing in the background was Gary. Uno Wina Chete. And that was yeah.
Wow. The sentiments around his death, man. I mean, he was in Masvingo when the accident happened. They failed to airlift him to Harare due to financial constraints. Mars wanted money up front. There has been a lot of an outcry in the health system in Zimbabwe and how it has failed so many artists, so many prominent names that have gone because they are not able to get good medical facilities and medical aid in the country when they need it desperately. What are your thoughts on this?
Firstly, I would say that when I heard that, I was really heartbroken. It really hurt me so much because I know the potential that is there in Zimbabwe. And why I'm saying the potential, because we read the news, we see what's happening. We've just come out of the elections and we saw, during the campaigns, the monies that were being thrown around and stuff like that. So basically, for me, it means that as a country, there's certain things that we can afford. And health is one of the basic human rights. And I I still don't understand why our government is not establishing or strengthening, the emergency medical services and stuff. They move around with what are they called, the private jets and stuff. So why can't we have air ambulance services that are just there to ensure that individuals in critical conditions can be transported to hospital in a timely manner, irregardless of their ability to pay. This is something that I think has to change or be put somewhere. The health should, everyone deserves access to health, with or without money. Uh, our government should be held accountable for that. and that company that refused should be held accountable, because money comes, later, but a person's life should be put in the forefront of everything.
Artists and people all over the country were sending condolences messages on social media, and particularly the artists who have a huge following within the country. Everybody had a picture, a video, or something to pay their last respects to Garry. And when on the actual day of burial, it is being reported that there were a very few artists that attended his funeral. What are your feelings towards this? Do you think this is a common occurrence, or, like other people are saying on social media, that a lot are just chasing clout and, they just wanted to feel relevant to the times and to the event that has occurred, but really there's no connection with the person, there's no connection with the individual that has gone through, this unfortunate demise?
What I can tell you from experience with Zimbabweans, there's something about our people. It doesn't mean that maybe they didn't have connection. The connection might have been there or is there, but there's that thing with Zimbabweans that I feel, I'm not sure, maybe, but what I've seen so far is Zimbabweans rarely support each other. Zimbabweans will flock a Nigerian wedding or a Nigerian funeral, but when it's their own, they'll not do that. And I've seen this because, like I said, I do events. Let me give you a good example of something that happened here in China. I brought in Oliver Mtukudzi and the band, like the full band, and Oliver Mtukudzi. Now, Oliver Mtukudzi to us means a lot, right? He was actually a brand of Zimbabwe, and he still is, even if he's late. But if I tell you, the people who came to see Oliver Mtukudzi were basically more from the SADC countries, more than the people from Zimbabwe.
What?
Exactly.
For real?
The people from Zimbabwe, what they were busy thinking about, and things, like petty things. Yeah. But South Africans, people from Botswana and Namibia, they all came in. We had Zimbabweans that we can just count, my Zimbabweans. And I feel this is just the norm with Zimbabweans. We're good at talking. And some of them now, when they post a picture and stuff like that, yes, for clout. But really supporting someone, I don't know. I feel like a weakness category so as Zimbabweans, and that should change. And I think this is the other thing that keeps failing us as a country, because we're good at talking, we complain and cry, but we don't do anything. That's why we're continuing to remain at the same place where we were in Tolontolo and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Because kubatana chaiko hakuna, hakutorina. So it's quite disappointing that, people had pictures and stuff and then they couldn't even attend the funeral. Yes, we understand they were busy and stuff, but still,
yes. Pangodioka representation of some sort, maybe at least 5 to 10 artists, or even 20, with a large number of artists that are in
Zimbabwe kwacho hakutorina here an association yema-artist here. Kuti alright, kana padaro hakuna here, like what you're saying, representation, kuti that association will say, okay, vamwe havasi kukwanisa kuenda, but you guys endai, or izvi ndo zvataunganidza, chendai munoti represent.
Exactly.
There's nothing like that.
And I thought about that, when I was preparing for this, for this podcast, and I said to myself, each and every time an artist performs, if they were to say, ngatite association and toesakana $10 in that association, anything happens, we wouldn't be even seeing the lack of representation of artists or artist body or an artist organization that represents artists in Zimbabwe. And two, we wouldn't be seeing my GoFundMe. Like now, there's a GoFundMe to say, okay, help out Gary's wife and child, which is a good thing. But this association who should be taking care of things like this.
It's not. I mean, where do you expect us to learn about unity when we're not even united? I mean, we're not. It's like we grow.
Yeah, yeah.
We've been growing up in society or community where people are not united. To not just tribalism, etc., parties, polarization, and stuff like that. We're not united as Zimbabweans. Tinotowana something to separate,
Yeah.
And when I came to China, I actually envied the way they live. I actually envied, because if I think about back home, ukabvunza muntu wakadzidza kupi, just the school will tell you their background. You understand?
Yeah.
But here it's a bit different because they're mixed. There's no low density, there's no high density, there's no why. You'll find a filthy rich person with a poor person at the same place.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I sort of like love that, kuti unotoshaya kuti alright, ari rich wacho ndiani, ari poor wacho ndiani. They're all at the same place.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. There's a lot that we need to learn, but there's a lot that we need to just understand. Upenyu iviri, today it's you, tomorrow is another person. So the Ubuntu part is failing each and every day, and also this chasing cloud thing is just making it even harder to see who's fake and who's not. But surely it is easy to see who is fake when you can post about something and then you do not talk about or you don't do the action towards it, But I want to thank you so much for coming through. And I know it's a little bit late there. You're probably cooking supper or something in China there. But thanks for the time.
Yeah, no, I just want to pass my sincere condolences to Garry and his family. I mean, for me, he was a really respectful young man, and he knew what he wanted to be and stuff. It's unfortunate that his journey has been cut so short. But I believe his music would definitely live on. He made such a huge impact here. And I know he went back home and then COVID happened and stuff like that. But I feel we could have done more here in China and stuff. But during that time, I mean, he did a lot. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
He did a lot.
Thank you very much, Samantha. I keep calling you Samantha, although it's Dr. Samantha Sibanda. But you know what? Kwataka vakuri. It falls away.
You know the history.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for everything that you did for Garry, for everything that you're doing for them. Yeah, ne?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I was so proud of Garry. Really, I was so proud.
Yeah.
Having. Actually, he paved the way for some Zimbabweans who were here. Now we've got the likes of Maxwell Chiwungwe and a guy called Colin Sibanda, who are now also doing very well.
Yeah.
After Garry opened up that, So,
cool.
May his soul rest in peace.
Indeed.
We'll definitely miss him.
Indeed.
And we'll be there. I don't know how we can reach his family and staff. Will be really willing to support.
Yeah.
With whatever we can. I think I can try and mobilize people here in China to really assist. Unfortunately, we didn't know that there was that GoFundMe thing.
Yeah. Anything I think for now would be greatly appreciated. I mean, small little baby, a very young wife. I think we need to support as much as we can. But thank you so much, Samantha, for that.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me.
All right. That's Dr. Samantha Sibanda, a native of Zimbabwe, founder and president of Appreciate Africa Network, talking to her about Garry Mapanzure. The first time she met Garry, as she says, was when the guy was just straight out of music school. If you want to talk about how youthful and how young he was, he had just released Wapunza, going back to China where he was studying, and she called up for a couple of people that would love to perform, and he wowed them. So ever since then, Garry was a regular at her events. Good to know that he not only left a legacy in Zimbabwe, but also left a legacy even in China, where he was busy with a school and everything. All right, so that brings me to another part of this conversation and this podcast that I really want us to have. And I know this is a tricky, very tricky conversation to have, because politics in Zimbabwe is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. We are gladly we are glad to talk about anything else other than politics, because walls have ears, trees have eyes, and the ground can naturally just swallow you up. Okay, but I think it's something that we have to talk about. So there was a whole lot of texts and messages that happened during Garry and after Garry's said passing. Okay. We're having a problem with our medical health system in Zimbabwe. We're having a problem with clout chasers, artists saying something and not doing anything about it. We're having a problem in terms of unity, Ubuntu, people not coming together, artists not coming together and doing what they're supposed to do, which is care for each other, especially for those, your brother and your sister who is in the entertainment industry. But one thing stood out to me, which was one or two, a couple of social media posts from artists, especially, I'll give you an example of Kikky Badass, okay? There was this whole, is it Twitter or whatever, that I saw where there was a back and forth with some people accusing her of, being of ZANU-PF political party, right? Or a supporter of the party, right? And then, so the question was, you're blaming the system that you are supporting as an artist. My question in this podcast is pretty simple. At what point do we separate the arts and politics? Can it really be separated? Okay? Is it something that we can separate? Should artists be open on who they support politically? Is singing or openly supporting a party a reflection of what the artist really has in their mind or her mind, right? So kanandaimba, does that mean kanandaimbira ZANU-PF or Triple C? Kanandaimbira munhu parufu, kanandaimbira munhu pamchato. Is that a reflection of my mind? Is that a reflection of what I believe in or what I want my followers to believe in, right? Isn't their business to sing? Rekuimba, basa rako kufara, basa rangu kufadza iwe. That's what Oliver Mtukudzi said, right? But isn't their business just to sing? If they sing, they get paid. That's how they survive. That's how they make money. Does this reflect their support of any or their stamp of approval of anyone out there? Because let's face it, NGOs, political parties, funerals, weddings, corporate events, they are all looking for artists. They are all looking for entertainment. Chero ari marimba, chero ari guitar, chero ari vocal, chero ari choir, they are all looking for somebody to entertain them when the business of the day has been concluded or before the day. So what if it's just a show? What if an artist is just there to say either sing for ZANU or either sing for Triple C and in actual fact be detached wholly from what it is that they were doing at that event. I'll give you an example. As a journalist myself, I write, okay? So I can write about the state of the politics in Zimbabwe. I can write about what's happening in the country on the ground, you know? I can write about xenophobic attacks. I can write about how people are unemployed. But does that really reflect my mind? Does that really reflect who I am? Me writing according to the paper that is employing me, or the publication that has employed me, does that mean that I am for what I'm writing, or I'm just feeding my family? You know? Is there anyone who's neutral in this world? Let's face it, everybody has somebody that they like and somebody that they hate, somebody that they support and someone that they do not support. So naturally, there is nobody in the world who is neutral. I will wait for somebody. If you have somebody who you can tell me that this person is neutral, because it's either you enjoy or you do not like what's happening. It's either you're feeding your family or you're starving. It's either you are going out or you're staying in, right? There's no neutrality. You can't be in the middle of things. Like, I'm just in the middle. I don't want to be taking sides. Because by simply saying that you don't want to take sides means that you are taking sides. Actually, there is, you have a small part of you that has already taken a side. So if the side, or if life has three sides to it, it's either yes or no, and there is another side which is not to take sides, which is actually a side itself. You know, because both these parties can say to you, you are not supporting either of us, so there is somebody else that you are supporting. So I just thought this would be a very interesting conversation to have. What do we expect our artists that are based in Zimbabwe, performing and earning money in the country, struggling at times, like just like anybody else? What should they do when they're faced with a leave or perish kind of decision? Kana munanzi uyauimbe ndikupe 500 US. Tell me who in Zimbabwe's Zimbabwe standards, asinaki 500 US dollars, who would refuse to be given 500 US dollars to just use your talent. And I'm not saying, I'm not, like, I'm trying to be neutral, by the way, and I said nobody is neutral. But I'm just trying to see, to make you understand sometimes the way or the pressure or the things that we put out there might not necessarily make a whole lot of sense, because if you want to look at it, it's a survival kind of mindset. And some of you would say, Joe, you're wrong. You know, you cannot be peppered like these people, or whoever, the ruling government or Triple C is doing this to the people, is adversely affecting the people. So you going there and supporting them means that you are, you are saying it's good, continue doing what you're doing. But we don't know how these negotiations work for an artist to be actually said, Iwoka, we are timbire. You know, we don't know prior to that arrangement, or whatever it is. So I'm just saying, for me personally, in an unstable economy, in an unstable environment, in an unstable community where you cannot really blame someone who wants money when given money to then say no to it. Standards and who's going to give them money in the first place or in the second place? And I'm not saying yes to everything that artists are doing, but I'm just trying to open up your mind to the conversation to say, say, this is someone who has decided, I want to do this for life. I want to be an artist. And then if your art is heavily being asked for by the people that have money, you heard Dr. Sibanda saying, Taimunza to initiative yake ye Africa in China, right? A person can just go there and perform. ukuthi zviri kuitikei, what madhiri ari kusainwa or whatever is being discussed, we don't care, because an artist anongopuwa 2 hours dzake on stage. Okay, right now we're going to take a breather, we're calling in Oliver Mtukudzi, we're calling in Garry Mapanzure. After that, bam, apedza bhegi rake anaro muhomwe. Saka here kana tamuona achiperforma ipapo tata kuti yes, ndivamwe chete avo, they are together because I saw him performing at that. Isn't it possible for an artist to just do their art and sell their art? Because let's give an example again of an artist who does painting. There are a couple of paintings behind me. If someone decides to buy this painting and say, okay, I want this painting, whether this person is a rapist, a pedophile, or a boxer, a musician, a politician, etc., etc., I don't know where my art will be going. I don't know who will be consuming my art. But if they like that my art and they give me the money that I'm looking for this art so that I can feed my family, I will do it. And as far as I'm making this podcast, I don't know who's going to consume it. Anybody can consume this podcast. Anyone can say, okay, I want to listen to this guy. Anyone can say, okay, I like what this guy is saying. And anybody can say, I don't like. They can either disagree or agree. But the fact is, there is consummation, or what you call it, consumption that has happened of that product. So does it really matter who consumes the product, as long as the artist is surviving and doing what they can do to survive in a country and an economy such as Zimbabwe? I don't know. And as far as I know, only one person has sung against the ruling government in Zimbabwe directly. Put words and lyrics to it and say, hello. Okay, maybe two. Thomas Mafumo and Hope Chingwano. We all know Akamira Papi Hope is a person of the people, right? Umuntu wabantu, right? He's trying by all means to expose everything that is going on, which is wrong in Zimbabwe. That's his stance. Thomas Mafumo, in exile at the moment, right? And was singing against, well, I don't know if he's still in exile, but he was singing strongly against the ruling government at the time when Robert Mugabe was the president. You know? So we all know how that turns out. So as artists and as people, where then can we help them to draw the line? And is it wrong just for them to continue doing what they do, which is to sing, and then whoever consumes it, consumes it? It's something that I'd like to hear from you, something that I would really deeply want to hear as responses to this podcast. And I'll be waiting on artists who have directly sang against the ills of the ruling government in Zimbabwe, and I want to hear it from you guys and find out what in Devapi. My research is not as thorough as it's supposed to be, but I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Secondly, and lastly, I think, before we close off the show, I would really love to see, all the prominent people in Zimbabwe to act against what they say when specific things happen. Garry lost his life. There was no medical, there was no health facility to help him recover from what he had gone through, right? And we, afterwards, have blamed the government of Zimbabwe and the healthcare sector, which is prudent, which is 100% correct, okay? But I would love to hear these conversations from artists, from prominent people. I keep hearing one or two people online, social media. I would really love to hear this as a big conversation, not that a conversation for Hope Chingwano Jet or a conversation for Triple C. I would really love to hear these conversations in the art, in the music, in whatever it is, right? Because it helps to have a conversation about it before anything happens, and not only to just wait for an opportune time like this to say, oh, okay, and stuff like that. I would really love to hear, and I would really like to see some of these artists, some of these prominent people giving back to an ailing health sector in Zimbabwe. Guys, we can't have artists varungotora mari chete. We can't have artists vanongotora mari chete, whether waenda ku-UK, waenda ku-New Zealand, waenda kupi. Pauri kuenda ipapo, have some sort of giving back to the community kind of thing. That you can say, okay, inini 10% yangu, whatever, you can call it tithe or you can call it whatever. From anything that I do, I want to help out my country. I want to help out a children's home. I want to help out an old people's home. I want to help out a surgery. You know, I want to go and sing occasionally to the people that are afflicted and that are not feeling so well at Parinyatua Hospital. Give back to something, to a system that you know is probably failing its own people. And this whole rhetoric, and sorry to say this, and it might find me very offensive, but of talking only when prominent people have perished is not fair. Because our brothers and our sisters and our mothers and our cousins and our aunties are all perishing down there. Because they are not prominent, nothing happens. No one cries foul about it. But because you know this is happening, because you have a platform, I would love to challenge one or two artists out there to say, guys, do something. If you don't have the money, you have the voice, you have the following, you have the resources. Do something. Do something and change the community that you are living in. Do something. Whether mangoma ako, whether guitar, whether voice rako, or whether painting yako, whatever it is, do something and create something as artists that you can say, guys, let's build this Zimbabwe that we are living in. You're probably never going to perform outside the country. You're never gonna go far. You're never gonna be in the Billboard Top 100. You know, maybe you're never gonna make it at Coachella, right? But what is your giving back to the community kind of thing? What is it? How does it look like? What does it look like? Think about it and give back to the community rather than to just always cry foul. Because even if you do 10, 15, 20, 30 performances in a month or in a day, if you say to yourself $5 for every performance or even a certain percentage to every get takings that I take, I want to take it to somebody else, you will leave a lasting legacy that I think everybody will be so proud about you. To contribute to artists after they've perished and stuff like that. No bad feelings whatsoever about the current status and the current issues that are happening. But and you can change. You can help us change. You can help the community be better than what it is right now. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming through and tuning in into this podcast. I'll be back again next week, and of course we can always talk about all the other things that you love to hear about your entertainers and your artists. I'll be having one or two on the show, so yes, get hold of me if you'd like to be featured on the podcast. If you'd like to just be a friend of the podcast, please go to Spotify, follow this podcast, go to YouTube, follow this podcast, and of course let's make it happen between you and me and everything that we love about our country, especially the entertainment in our country called Zimbabwe. Bye-bye for now.
You are listening to the Joe Mars Podcast, a podcast inspired by musical creatives from and within Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world who are making an impact and pursuing their passions. My name is Joseph Maramba, and I'm a radio host best known for shows on Capital FM, Power FM, and Sport FM radio. And I'm sitting down with creatives to learn more on their story and how they are making an impact with every single production.